of the features of last night's budget is changes to incentives for property developers to build with the sole purpose of renting the accommodation out. So let's break that down and what it means with the Chief Executive of the Property Council of Australia, Mike Zorbas, who joins me now. Mike, many thanks for your time. It's odd to say this, but I would suggest that property developers and Labor governments haven't always been the best of bedfellows. So it is interesting to see the necessity for more accommodation coming out of last night's budget.
Thanks, Ross. I mean, the winners here are obviously people in the rental market who are experiencing extreme pressure because of years of undersupply. And there's no doubt this investment from the government will unlock up to 150,000 new homes around the country. Why this is so welcome is because at the same time, we're trying to fill big gaps in our economy with migrants from overseas. And the big story of this budget, from my perspective, is that there's 1.5 million new people in the market to rent or to buy property over the next 5 years to 2027. That's a huge number, a historic number. And at the same time, the number of apartments that we'll be delivering across the country is approximately 1/5 next year versus 2018. So a really rapid drop-off in the supply of new dwellings at the same time as the government is trying to really bring on supply. And one of the levers that they've chosen to pull is this build-to-rent mechanism, which I think will really help. It's not the silver bullet, but it's very close.
Okay, so just take me through broadly the changes that the government introduced last night and how they will provide that incentive for builders to get out there and start developing more apartments.
Yeah, so what happens at the moment is if you want to invest in Australia, if you're a pension fund from overseas or a sovereign wealth fund, essentially you can invest in retail, in office, in industrial at a certain rate. And now the government has said that they will offer that same rate for investment into build-to-rent housing. This is a huge benefit for particularly pension funds from Australia, super funds from Australia, who want a deep and liquid market before they commit their own funding and before the asset is proved up as an asset class. It's a huge success in the US and a very big part of the UK and Canadian markets, up to 12% of the US residential market. But here, even if you built out all the build-to-rent that you've heard about for the last couple of years being invested in here, you only get to 0.2% of our $10 trillion residential market. So this will turbocharge that up to a couple of percent by the end of the decade.
Okay, then take me to the capital works deductions that are available. Why does increasing that to 4% have such an impact on the incentive to build?
Well, amortising, the value of that over the course of investment in the asset essentially, creates a much more stable capital flow. So, when you look at the combination of the two things together, you finally get over that hurdle, that sort of 4 to 6% return hurdle that has been problematic in build-to-rent up until now. Much of what we've seen in the market to this date has been about proving up how organisations deal with having people living in their properties at scale. It's not been about developing a deep and liquid market. And so both of these changes taken together really increase the chance that you're going to have significant take-up. And that's what we need. We need a really big pipeline here, looking at about 150,000 homes around the country over the next 10 years. And the government, as you know, has a million home target by 2029. They will not make that without bold moves like this and without improving housing targets across the board and planning delivery across the board in the big capital cities around the country, which is why they're so focused on their housing accord, of which we hope to hear more soon.
So just a quick one. It would almost seem as though the shortage of housing almost takes off the table any suggestion that this Labor government, when it was in opposition, had of changing capital gains tax deductions, or indeed, on the other side, even negative gearing. I mean, you can't do that when you've got a lack of housing, a lack of accommodation in this country.
I don't think you want to put up any barriers to investment in housing, and so it would seem to be the wrong time entirely to consider changes to negative gearing or capital gains tax regimes. There are a lot of other tax reforms, broader-based taxes that the government could look at in that area, and I think that's why they dropped their changes to negative gearing and capital gains during their period of opposition. They realised that there'd be a hit to the economy. It's about 1.5 billion if you made the changes that Labor originally took to the 2019 election, and about 8,000 construction jobs would be under threat. And other organisations have modelled similar numbers. So, it wouldn't be the sort of thing you'd be doing right now in the middle of a housing crisis.
Yeah, Mike Zorbas, Chief Executive of the Property Council of Australia. Many thanks for your time on the program today.
Many thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.